I'm about as real as they come.
All my beats tailored by Joe. House Digital.
Maserati, Rick in Detroit. Convertible bird in Miami. Graduated summa cum laude. Strip club made a tsunami. Carlton Hines with the ball game. Grateful Edmonds with the snowflakes. Craig Pettis in the M-Town. Sal Magluta with the boat game. Falcone with the cocaine. Like Freeway Ricky with the plug game. Like Monster Cody in South Central. Larry Davis from close range.
Yeah, check it out one time.
2 innocent people gunned down in an apparently random shooting in a neighborhood ravaged by drugs.
The mothers were sitting there talking, and next thing you know, out of the dark, gunshots just start going off.
People are armed, people are dangerous, and people are acting irrationally, and that's something that you always have to be aware of 24 hours a day.
Police here are bracing for more crack-related violence.
No matter what happens from this point on, you're gonna go down in history for writing one of the most incredible songs ever, and the song is called Renee, or whatever. Let's talk about that song. Did you ever think that song would be as big as it was?
I mean, not when I wrote the joint, you know what I'm saying? I got to shout out to my man Ruler Divine for the hook.
Okay.
To give it up, he did the hook, you know what I'm saying? I gotta give him that props. Sometimes I forget that I gotta shout some people out for that.
Right, you can't.
They don't write my lyrics.
They
don't write no lyrics. They come up with some nice hooks. I gotta remember to get them things up, you know what I'm saying?
As you should.
Yeah, the story was based on a shorty out in 40 that got killed. You know
It's a real true story.
Yeah.
On a frigid Christmas day in 1989, in the heart of the 40 projects in Queens, New York, the street buzzed with a mix of anticipation and festivity. With temperatures hovering near freezing, families exchanged gifts, laughter echoed through the air, and the promise of a new year lingered on the horizon. But just before that night would end, a group of men, driven by the ruthless pursuit of power and control, began to unleash a barrage of gunfire on the west side of 106th Street, between 107th and 8th Avenues, forever altering the course of fate. This tragic event would claim the life of a teenager by the name of Ebony Williams, an innocent bystander who just happened to be caught in the crossfire of a senseless act of violence. It would be less than a decade from that shooting and her untimely death when her name and the story surrounding her killing would be etched in the memory of hip-hop history, when she would be immortalized in one of the best storytelling songs ever made, Renee, by the Lost Boys. The song would provide the story, but what was missing were the details about the specific time period or the pulse of the nation, particularly New York City.
Like an ambient sense of danger in New York City at that point in time.
The city was chaotic. It was unpredictable. It was hostile.
This new drug emerged in the 1980s, which is crack.
The crack epidemic had hit New York like a snowstorm.
Crack was like the Ebola of drugs. It just ravaged the place. It took the homicide rate through the ceiling.
88, 89, you had about 1,900 to 2,000 murders a year, citywide.
Basically, you've got almost as many murders in a month back then as you have now in an entire year in New York City.
And there's wealth, and there's poverty, and there's crime, and there's fear, and violence, and it is all wrapped up in one big, tumultuous, single city between the East and Hudson Rivers.
Just how crazy was the crack epidemic, you ask? In an article discussing the war on drugs, the Britannica, the company responsible for publishing the world's oldest continuous encyclopedia, would state that by 1989, 1 in 4 African American males aged 20 to 29, or 25% of the African American males within that age group, were either incarcerated or on parole or probation. widely contributing to the United States having the largest incarceration rate in the world. Now, as the years would pass and the rock would spread, it would incredibly increase the propensity for violence. It's like in 1985, 86, niggas was getting money, spending it on clothes, cars, and beepers. In 87, 88, people began noticing the clothes, the cars, and the people hanging on the corner with the lines. The same way the Wall Street boom would produce many young millionaires, the same thing was occurring in Brownsville or Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, or in the Bridge or Jamaica and Queens. Or the same could be said about places like Soundview in the Bronx or anywhere in Harlem. I wasn't there, so I can't really say exactly, but from the countless accounts I heard, I picture it like this. You see a guy that you have grown to know to be bummy, all of a sudden wearing leather bombers, rope chains, and driving last year's Beamer. I could see how something like that might produce envy. So niggas strapped up. So by the time 1989 would roll around, everybody, including the cops, knew exactly what was going on. It wasn't just hustlers anymore. It was opportunists, scavengers, and wild cowboys, literally trying to get into the game. Describing it in eras, it's like 1984, 85 through 1987 would be the golden years, and pretty much everything after 1987, to me, would be known as the terror era.
Today, undercover police in the Miami area posed as crack salesmen and arrested dozens of users. It is a problem in Houston, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Tucson, and Sacramento. A year and a half ago, the DEA was finding crack in only 7 cities. Now, crack is showing up in more than 40 cities. A narcotics agent calls its rapid spread phenomenal.
That it appears to have somewhat leveled off in the suburbs, as you and I define the suburbs. We can't say that certainly for the inner city.
Crack-related violence is on the increase.
Crack-related killings are blamed for a 63% rise in the murder rate this year.
When we think of casualties that occur as part of the drug game, we often think of 2 rivals shooting it out, or a hustler that was doing dirt that got smoked. Well, with how bad things got in the 80s, a fiend murking the whole family in chase of a rock, but more often than not, the victims would be people that didn't have any association with the game. Innocent victims that I would call collateral damage of the drug game. Not to say that it didn't occur before, but after 1987, they just seem to happen more frequently. And I only have to look at the city of New York before Ebony Williams would add to that body count. On October the 13th, 1987, an 11-year-old by the name of Raheem Clark, nicknamed Ricky, would be fatally shot in his forehead as he rode his bicycle in the front of his family home in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. Then you have Cashane Green. On January 20th, 1989, the 12-year-old Cashane would be inadvertently caught in a drug-related dispute on a sidewalk in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn. She would be shot in the neck and tragically die a few hours later in a nearby Kings County hospital. Cashane, a junior high school student with dreams of becoming an artist, had simply walked around the corner to hear some gossip from a friend when she would be caught up in a violent confrontation. Then there's Jesus Del Valle. Caught between 2 feuding drug dealers, the 52-year-old would be fatally shot on September 18, 1989, as he crossed the street in front of his home in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn. Then just 11 days later, you have the case of Neil Bates, who happened to be a recovering crack addict. Neil was killed on September the 29th, 1989, when a stray bullet would pierce through his window and strike him in the chest while he was in bed on a 9th floor apartment in the Millbrook houses in the Bronx. The shooting occurred as 2 drug dealers were engaged in a shootout on a rooftop nearby. It's like it was a war going on outside. Nobody was safe from. It didn't matter if you was calling a cab from a phone booth or sleeping in your bed.
The victim of a Christmas Day shooting has died.
Whoa, man.
putting the Renee together?
Yeah.
Well, you know, the situation happened where I got to give a shout out all the time when I mentioned Renee, the record I made, man, you know, because it was made over a fatal incident that happened in 40B.
Yeah.
One girl named Ebony got killed, and it was also a married family. They just got off the wedding. The lady got shot. The baby survived, but she died. You know what I'm saying?
So Renee is essentially a story about a girl that you hook up with who ends up getting killed.
Right.
Was there any truth? Was that based on anything, or is that just a made-up story?
It's a story about a shorty that got killed in our neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? And it was one of them topics where I just said, you know what I'm saying, I wanted to write about it. You know what I mean? See how I connect with people. It's like the ill story. You don't really think of your shorty getting killed. You know what I'm saying? So when a lady or a female get killed, that should just bug you out. You know what I'm saying? So I wrote that. You know what I'm saying? And it may be a story to somebody. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it was about. You know what I'm saying? I dedicated to the shorty Ebony out there in Queens. But it's for anybody that lost a loved one, a shorty. You know what I'm saying? So
most of the people that heard this song probably don't even know it's somewhat based on a true story. But even if you happen to know that, you probably didn't know she was brought into this world by one of the most respected gangsters Queens has ever seen. Another thing the song didn't mention was Ebony, or Renee, wasn't the only person to lose their lives on that fateful Christmas day. While an 18-year-old Ebony Williams would be gunned down in a phone booth calling a taxi cab, tragically, a recently married 20-year-old Lisa Biffle and her husband, an unborn child, would be also main characters in this tragedy. 8 months pregnant, Lisa, a Jehovah's Witness, would also be hit, and she would prematurely give birth to a healthy boy. But unfortunately, she would lose her life after 3 hours of surgery and refusing a blood transfusion for religious purposes. The ball wouldn't even have a chance to drop for New Year's, as it would just be within 5 days before the authorities would arrest two 17-year-olds, Danny McLean and Eric Reed, along with a 16-year-old by the name of Dwayne Faust, for the drive-by shooting. McLean and Reed would be charged in the shooting that the New York Times would call a power play over drug turf in the lucrative 40 projects. And like I said many times before, we bop our heads to the music, not knowing the pain behind the words that we are even listening to. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red bell and subscribe button right under this video so y'all know when this real trill spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box below. Y'all let me know what cities we need to go to, what stories we need to tell, what we missed, what we got wrong, all of that. Y'all tap in directly with me on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. And until the next time, y'all know how we run it. Shades Popalot. Salute the almighty mob.